my clients shared with me that her ex broke off their relationship in the most interesting way. She said that her ex told her he needed a little space and abruptly moved out after 23 years together. He said he wasn't ending their long-term relationship, and in fact, he wanted to start dating her again. He wanted to fall in love with her all over again, he claimed. And he almost made it sound exciting and healthy. He told her he was in a rut and he needed to shake things up. He said he needed to find himself. She was, of course, devastated, but tried to play along in hopes that it would work out. Of course, what I haven't mentioned about this situation is that this man spent the previous 23 years systematically manipulating and psychologically destroying my client. He had future faked her for years, so much that they were literally engaged for 2 decades, but never actually got married. She confessed to me that she'd tried to leave repeatedly, thanks to several episodes of cheating, but he'd always managed to suck her back in one way or the other. In fact, they'd gotten engaged 20 years ago because of the first cheating episode. She told me he'd showed up at her mom's house after she'd retreated there after finding him with another woman. He had a ring and a big public proposal. He wooed her back into submission, basically, and this pattern would continue much to her chagrin. Each time she tried to get him to set a wedding date over the years, he always had an excuse. They didn't have the money. She was pregnant. Their dog died. He wasn't really sure if she really loved him, and then later, he wasn't sure if he really loved her. Then she was pregnant again. And now, after 23 years of not-so-wedded not bliss, and 2 children who were now a young adult and a teen, here he was doing it again, and this time, she was sure it would stick. But she couldn't seem to let go of him, and she didn't quite understand why. She had become so enmeshed with him that she didn't even recognize herself anymore. She knew she wanted to be done so she could finally move on with her own life, but she couldn't quite figure out how to even start. Because like all narcissists, he absolutely refused to give her the closure she needed to move forward and let him go. That's because narcissists don't do closure. They have a way of leaving you hanging, don't they? But why? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today at queenbeing.com. Narcissists and closure, why they don't give it, how you're affected by the lack of closure, and how to create closure for yourself. This is going to be a good one. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is exactly what I mean when I say closure. For the record, it's that sense of resolution or the sort of conclusion that you feel at the end of any normal relationship. Unfortunately, this is often denied to survivors of narcissistic abuse. I'm going to explain why, but this leaves us feeling obsessed with figuring out the details and the implications of our toxic relationships. We find ourselves ruminating and stuck and spinning as a result of not getting the closure. Of course, it leaves a lot of us feeling the need to either find our own closure or spend years trying in vain to emotionally heal after these toxic relationships. We feel like we can't move forward and we're not understanding exactly why that is. Let's get there. Why don't narcissists give you closure at the end of a toxic relationship? Well, there are so many reasons, but for the most part, their reasoning or lack thereof is probably going to fall into one of the following points I'm going to share with you. Number 1, narcissists only care about themselves. You already know that narcissists are just not really capable of being empathetic. As such, they simply can't put themselves into the shoes of anyone else, not the way a normal person can. And that's one reason they won't give closure. They'll ghost you without a second thought. The idea of wondering how it might make you feel when they do that is a completely foreign concept to them. All they know is that they had their reasons and they don't even consider your feelings in this whole thing. They might even be shocked when you ask them why they've done what they've done because they don't get why you'd want to know. The truth is that teaching a narcissist empathy, it's kind of like trying to teach a fish to ride a bike. It's frustrating and nearly impossible. Which brings me to number 2, they don't think you deserve it. Because narcissists don't have empathy, they can't imagine that you might even need closure, much less deserve it. That's right, despite the fact that you have spent a whole bunch of time bending over backward to make sure that the narcissist was happy and got what they needed, now that it's over, they don't figure they owe you anything at all. And sadly, this includes closure. Because by not giving you closure, what happens? Well, they ensure that you're going to keep thinking about them. And hey, what narcissist doesn't want that? Which brings me to number 3, they don't see you as a whole person. This one is kind of tough to hear sometimes, but it's the truth. Narcissists truly do not see you or anyone else they've grown close to as a real whole person. Rather, you're almost like an object to them, one that they can use and consume at will, and then toss aside when they're done with it. And of course, they have no issue whatsoever coming along to pick you up and use you again when they're ready. They literally see you as less of a person than they see themselves, which, if I'm being honest, is a little bit ironic if you think about it, given the narcissist's shallow nature and the probability that you are a deep, thoughtful, and compassionate person. How do I know that? Well, I know that because narcissists don't manage long-term relationships with anyone else. They need someone who will take care of their emotional needs and often a lot of their other needs as well. well. This brings me to number 4. They don't give you closure because you want closure. I know it seems unlikely, but did you ever notice how narcissists, when you're really stressed out or times that get tough, they kind of have a way of kind of kicking you when you're down, proverbially speaking or otherwise? They can be real sadists, and part of them loves to see you squirming in emotional distress. And even though narcissists can't empathize with you, they still get that you might appreciate closure, and maybe that would even help you move on. And not only does knowing this give them a little bit of a power buzz, but it also assures them that you won't be able to move on when they need your supply again, which brings me to my next point. Number 5, they need your supply, maybe. Narcissists require narcissistic supply, as you know, and you, as their supply, are used by the narcissist for attention, validation, admiration, all the supply they need to feed their ego. On top of this, the narcissist often has a circle of supply or a narcissistic harem, and like it or not, they've pegged you as one of them. Now, this circle or harem might include people that they're cheating with, their mothers, fathers, various friends, coworkers, neighbors, or other family members. You might be or might have been their primary source of supply for a long time. And since you've been such a good source of supply up to this point, the narcissist figures they might want to use you again at some point. So by leaving the door open, you're left spinning, and if the narcissist has anything to say about it, you won't be moving on with your life. This way, when they need you, they can wiggle their way back in again when it's convenient for them. This brings me to number 6. Maybe they're not yet secure with the new supply. Speaking of narcissistic supply, here's another possibility. The narcissist is actively trying to procure a new source of supply in many cases. And since they're not yet 100% sure that they've got it all on lockdown yet, the new supply might still have the nerve to think that they're as important as the narcissist in the relationship or whatever. And so the narcissist might still need to dump on someone when they feel stressed or overwhelmed, because since they're actively love bombing and idealizing the new supply, the narcissist might not feel comfortable enough to actually take the mask off yet. So if that's the case, then the narcissist can find a good reason to connect with you when they need to blow off some steam or get some comfort or whatever. They're going to do it, most certainly. And even when the new supply is fully locked in, they might still want to keep you on standby just in case. After all, as I mentioned, they don't really see you as a whole person or an actual person, so why wouldn't they use you when and how they can? Which of course brings me to number 7. They've got a message for you. Throughout your relationship, regardless of the nature of it, the narcissist has been making just a few things clear. First, they see you as powerless, and they don't want you to have any control whatsoever over the relationship, much less your own life. They want you to understand that as far as they're concerned, you really don't deserve any recognition for what you've done for them. No, not even for the years you spent trying to make them happy and putting your own happiness aside. And sadly, they want you to believe that you are unlovable and that you don't even really need to be acknowledged. Of course, this is all part of the narcissistic abuse cycle, part of the way that they control you throughout the relationship. So there are a few things you need to know about narcissist enclosure in addition to what I talked about. This part's going to be a little tough, but it's really important that I explain something to you here. You need to know that someone generally gives you closure at the end of a relationship because they actually care about you and the relationship that you've had together. They give closure because they want peace and they care enough about you to want you to be happy. They want you to be able to move on. The narcissist knows that if you have closure, you're going to be able to find that peace and then you'll be able to move forward without them. And by keeping you in this toxic loop, they keep you open for a hoover, and they are able to keep taking, future faking, and using you at will. It would require them to take personal responsibility for how they've treated you, and it would mean ending the lies and manipulation that they've been using to keep you emotionally engaged in the first place. Just the idea of real, genuine closure is nearly unthinkable to a narcissist, if you really think about it. There are a lot of different things that you can do, though, to make your own closure, and I've talked about this on a pretty regular basis. So right now I'm going to attach a portion of a previous video that will give you a few tips to help you kind of create your own closure. And then I'll be back to see you here right afterward. Closure is possible, it can happen, but you have to create it yourself. So the first step to doing that is to sort of try to let go of the illusion of what you thought the relationship was. This is true whether we're talking about a romantic relationship or a family relationship or a friend relationship. We had some idea in our mind who that person was and who they thought we were, and now suddenly we're seeing clearly. We're awake and we know that it wasn't exactly what we thought it was. It's really important for us to let go of that illusion of goodness, the illusion of what we thought we had, and to sort of be aware, be awake, and understand what's really happening and what really happened. No contact is really an important part of recovery. In fact, it's almost necessary for anyone who is able to do it. Sometimes you're going to have to deal with a narcissist on certain things, like if you have kids or you have a business together, but if that's the case, Low contact is your best option, and you only deal with them on a business level. No emotions involved. You have to recognize that everything that we thought was real in the relationship was just a lie. It was just an illusion, and it's painful. You're going to mourn it like a death. Statistics tell us that things like divorce are more stressful than things like actual death. So be aware of that. When you're able to start letting go of that illusion, you're going to be able to start finding your actual self. You're going to go through a phase where you do a lot of research. You're doing that right now by watching this video. You need to understand the person on a logical level. And I think most intelligent people have that need once they realize what the heck they've been going through. You then have to accept what you can control and what you can't control, and recognize there are some things you have power over and some things you don't. What you do have power over is yourself and your own perception and your own world. What you don't have power over is the narcissist. So the best thing that you can do is steer clear, stay up as far away as possible, and don't engage unless you're absolutely forced to because you have children or a business together. You won't receive closure from a narcissist, but you can find something in yourself that is beautiful out of all of this mess. This is a big rubble-filled mess, this thing that happened. What you can do is start pulling the rocks off the mess and look in there, and there will be your beautiful, bright soul. And you can nurture yourself and you can love yourself to the point that you begin to really grow and change. You can create your own closure without being in contact with the narcissist. You can create your own closure and find your own peace. And this is the best part of all of this, the silver lining of this whole darn situation. You can come out being a better, stronger, more evolved person than you ever were before you started this relationship. I'm not saying it's the best way to get to it. I'm just saying if you've already been through it, you might as well take that silver lining and run with it. You have to make the choice to decide logically, I'm no longer going to be a part of this relationship. That doesn't mean that right then at that moment you're going to feel completely detached. That's just where it all begins. You have to begin to consciously not allow yourself to get sucked back into the narcissist's games. It's really difficult. You have to decide that you're no longer going to fall for the narcissist's manipulation tactics. Not gaslighting, not projection, not belittling. You can't fall for any of it. You have to decide that you will no longer accept nonsense answers and made-up stories as truth. You have to decide that you will stand up for yourself or you will walk away when you're dealing with a narcissist who's engaging in these games. And even though you know that some of these things worked on you in the past, you have to decide it's not going to work anymore. So the first step to detachment is deciding to do it. In order to actually be detached where you really feel like you're no longer connected to that person, you have to sort of fake it till you make it. And I know that phrase is not really loved in our community, but it's kind of true. What I mean is, you have to kind of go through the motions before you really get what you're doing. You feel me? So in order to sort of protect yourself emotionally, you focus on the logic of it all. You focus on the facts. You use your cognitive abilities to stay logical and for the time being, keep your emotion out of it. Now you will get to a point in recovery when you will want to connect your emotions to your logic, of course. But right now, we're just trying to keep you protected so that you can detach from that narcissist. Remember, we feel addicted to narcissists and toxic people who we've loved very much like you would feel addicted to a drug. It affects the same part of your brain that drug addiction does. You're going to be emotionally crushed. You're going to feel a great deal of stress. And you're going to feel really confused by everything your partner or family member has done. Now, in many cases, you're going to want to start practicing this detachment even before you leave the narcissist. So if you haven't left yet, this is still something you can and should do. It sort of helps you, well, detach mentally and emotionally from this person so that you can start to imagine your life new. You can start to imagine your life different. The hardest part of this is that you're going to have to start ignoring the signals that your brain is naturally sending you. These are like emotional triggers that come from things that the narcissist is doing or not doing in your life. A lot of people tell me they want to check the narcissist's social media every 5 minutes, or they want to text them and check in with them, or they want to track them on their phones. If you're already separated, you might be thinking about wondering who that person's been dating, or you might just want to give them a call just to get some closure. You probably find yourself talking about the narcissist in different support groups or on forums online. And that's really a big part of why we stay stuck, because we feel like we can't really resist those urges. They feel almost primal to us. Those types of messages are coming from that part of ourself that is primal, that part that doesn't really understand the logic of it all. This is why we have to really step up our thinking game when we're trying to recover from narcissists. Our emotions won't allow us to overcome this type of abuse ourselves. We need to bring in the logic, because the logic is the part that looks at the facts and the things that are actually happening in the moment. But you're going to need a little bit of help with letting go of a narcissist. And the first thing is going to be the willingness to change your mind, the willingness to have the intention and try to stick to it. You have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to tell yourself no when you want to look at their social media or make a phone call or send a text or stalk them in some other way. And the next thing you have to do is you have to educate yourself on what a narcissist is. So, of course, we know what a narcissist is, but in case you don't, take some time, watch some videos, read some articles, find out exactly what it is that you're dealing with if you haven't already, and then use that information and that knowledge, learn about the manipulation tactics, learn about the psychology of a narcissist, learn about the spectrum of narcissism, the whole cluster B spectrum. Take some time. Figure out the narcissist and how their brain works and how they work. And once you've done that, not only does it get a little easier to deal with the narcissist because they are exhibiting identifiable behaviors that are seen in all narcissists, this will help you disconnect emotionally a little bit by itself. Once you've educated yourself about narcissism, you're going to also want to educate yourself about yourself and the reasons that you found yourself in this position in the first place. Another good reason to educate yourself is that it's not really fair or safe to assume that every guy or girl is like the one you were just with. Narcissism and all of the cluster B disorders can be very extreme, and while the narcissist in your life probably made you feel crazy or not good enough or controlling or whatever, it's really important that you sort of overcome those false beliefs about yourself. You have to understand narcissists can't take responsibility, so they're going to do anything they can to avoid it. Of course, that includes blaming you or anyone else who's near them. By figuring out exactly how a narcissist works, you can logically move through things even if you are still in emotional pain. Does that make sense? So you use the information that you gather as a way to sort of turn in the way that you're thinking, a way to sort of change lanes, so to speak. You stop thinking of you and the narcissist as us, and you start seeing yourself as an individual. You start worrying about your own safety, your own well-being, your own freaking sanity, and you start looking toward your own future. It's sort of like you're going at no contact with them, just emotionally, on an emotional, internal level. And they'll notice it, I promise you, but if you stick it out, you'll be able to detach fully when it's time. When and if you're ready. By protecting yourself with your understanding of the logic of the psychology of all of these parts of the narcissistic personality, you're protecting yourself with your understanding of the situation. You can put your emotions to the side as you figure out the psychology of it. And in my experience, I found that knowing the psychology helped me to identify those behaviors, helped me to go, okay, that's gaslighting, okay, that's projection, whatever it was. When I could see it in that way and I could identify and label the behaviors, it took the sting out of them for me. I almost started to feel sorry for the narcissist when I could see how textbook the manipulations were, almost. A few quick tips for detachment. Remember that you don't want to ever expect the narcissist to change, and demanding that the narcissist will change is just an exercise in frustration. So don't waste your energy or your time. Understand the narcissist could change, sure. But unless the narcissist chooses to change of his or her own volition, it's not going to happen. And in my experience and in the experience of many other people I've interviewed and worked with, they don't change because they never think anything is wrong. And I know that's painful, but it's true. The next thing you need to do is make sure you don't try to play the narcissist, play games with the narcissist. Certainly it could be satisfying to take the narcissist and twist them around a little and give them a taste of their own medicine, right? But doing that is just going to cause you a great deal of stress, and it is in many cases going to have the narcissist rising up against you. It's just not worth it. It's like talking to a brick wall. You can't expect it to hear you or change, but you can certainly bang your head against it and wind up with injuries of your own. Remember that there's nothing wrong with you. You shouldn't have any shame or doubt about yourself because you do need to walk away from this person. You're in a relationship that's toxic and it's destructive to your life and yourself. Not only do these types of relationships affect us mentally, but also physically, it's really important that you try to develop a really rational perspective of the situation and that you don't stay focused on those things that are out of your control. Like I said, even if you can't leave, you can still sort of distance yourself emotionally. But don't doubt who you're dealing with. Don't question yourself. Make sure that you take responsibility for your own happiness, your own peace, your own well-being, your own fulfillment. The narcissist cannot and will not do that for you. In fact, no one will. The narcissist wants you to stay depressed and sad and beaten down because that makes it easier to control you. But now you can take back that control, even if you can't leave yet. You can take back the control and make it your own again. You gave them control over your feelings, your thoughts, your behaviors, your happiness, your well-being, all of those things, certainly without realizing it. But on some level, you gave them that control. Maybe you were manipulated into it. Chances are that you were. But it's time that you start meeting your own needs, and you do that by making different choices, different behaviors, a new perspective, and by acting from that new perspective of empowerment. Know this: you cannot change, fix, save, rescue, or love anyone enough to force them to love you or to be nice to you. The narcissist is a limited person. They don't have the ability to see you for the amazing person that you are. And unfortunately, those narcissistic glasses they're wearing won't let them see you that way. It's really their loss, even though it doesn't feel like that just yet. You have to remember that no matter what happens, the narcissist will never think you're good enough long term. Certainly the love bombing will come here and there. Certainly you might get put up on a pedestal now and then. But no matter how much you do for them, it's never going to be enough, and they're always going to ask for more. You can compromise forever. You can give up everything you want and never take care of any of your needs. You can bend over backward for them. It won't matter. The more you do those things, the more ungrateful, the more entitled, the more demanding, the more pushy they will become. Essentially, you're going to waste your energy on a person like this if you keep doing it. So think about stopping. Think about taking back your power and not letting them have it anymore. Make sure you don't have high expectations when it comes to the narcissist. I want to tell you to raise your expectations, but recognize that the narcissist will never rise to the occasion. So keep your expectations low when it comes to dealing with one. Understand that they are limited people. They don't have the ability to empathize with you or even really care about you, especially when they're angry at you. They lack object constancy, which means that they can't love you and be angry at you in the same moment. So in those moments when they are angry at you, they really dislike you or sometimes even hate you as a result of whatever they're feeling. No matter how much guilt or crocodile tears or extreme hypersensitivity they seem to throw your way, don't fall for it. Just remember, this is a pathological person who is going to continue to hurt you if you allow them to. It's time for you to take back your mind, your emotions, yourself. When you can, spend as much time away from the narcissist as possible if you haven't already left, and find a support group that will help you. Maybe this involves friends or family members or even a local support group that you find through meetup.com, or maybe you get involved with a support group online, such as the Spanily, which you can learn more about that at queenbeing.com/span. It's free and very supportive. Our coaches and our admin team are also survivors, and they do everything they can to keep the group safe for you every day. We have admins from around the world to make sure that we're covered most of every single day and night. Ultimately, what you're trying to do when you're detaching from a narcissist is to try to stop letting them hurt you. Stop letting them affect you. And to end the relationship, whether in reality or in your mind, know that when you stop reacting, they will start pushing harder many times. That's the narcissistic whirl response we talk about. Like I mentioned in a recent video, when you see them beginning to kind of rile up and act pushier and more entitled and more ungrateful, scream, yell, whatever, that kind of shows that what you're doing is working, because it's them reacting to not getting what they want. It's them reacting to a lack of narcissistic supply, which ultimately is what you must deprive them of if you're ever going to get free. By using the art of detachment in your favor, you can actually take back your power one moment at a time. Every time you don't react, you get a little more powerful. It feels pretty good. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time for you to learn how to do this and make it exactly what it needs to be. Detachment is essentially indifference. That's really difficult for people like us, for empaths. It sort of runs against those beliefs that we've always fundamentally carried within ourselves about love and relationships. But remember, you're in a relationship with someone who is emotionally, verbally, or otherwise abusing you, someone who attacks you, devalues you, discards you over and over again, someone who makes you feel like you don't matter, someone who stands on your head in order to raise up their own insecurities, someone who's willing to beat you down emotionally and take from you everything that you have, literally or otherwise. Some people would say that a narcissist has no soul. Psychologists will tell you that a narcissist has no empathy. Either way, the perspective from which a narcissist operates is damaging for anyone who gets close to them. It's time for you to stop letting a narcissist destroy you, to detach yourself mentally and emotionally, and to start to move on so that you can heal, take back your life and take back your power and become the person you truly want to be. You deserve that, my friend. You know that, right? Please don't forget. Okay, what do you think? This brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, have you struggled to find closure after a relationship with a toxic narcissist? And if so, how did you deal with it? If not, are you worried that you won't be able to get closure when and if you do end your relationship? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life, and hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm leaving for you right here and right here. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.